Welcome back and happy Ostera. Oh, spring is here. Hachoo, sniffles. Blah. On this episode, I'll be talking about witches and the occult. I mean, what is Halloween without bedlams on brooms and bubbling brews? To live as a witch daily is often fun and rewarding on a personal level. Witchcraft has afforded me to live out my inner child. On weekends, I'm a temptress. Sometimes I'm a phoenix, an alchemist. It's a craft, my craft, and it's ever changing. March has been the month that I found myself focusing on healing and helping others to heal themselves. I'm going to get deep here. Despite my smile, my confidence, and the fucks that I don't give, I actually do suffer from debilitating depression and heart-pounding anxiety, like so many of you. I'm one of those like how Robin Williams used to be, who can smile through and joke through the pain and despair, but sometimes it gets too dark and it gets too heavy, and I can't joke and pretend. Sometimes I'm so manic that I miss my depression, and then when I can barely function and the weight of the world feels as if it's suffocating me, I miss my anxiety. It's a double-edged sword. It's always a battle. But what never fails in calming me down or bringing me out of a bad funk is the occult. For example, during the March new moon, I wrote out and then burned my intentions, visualized them, and then celebrated the new beginning with a collective of witches, my sisters and brothers, all at the Witches Brew Night Market on March 13th. It was a safe and socially distanced outing that was put on by an incredible woman and her family. I know the kind of crowds the Witches Brew draws. It's a subtle, calm crowd who takes pleasure in selling wares and convening with each other, all with welcoming smiles. The biggest problem with the event was me trying not to hug everybody. I mean, we're still in a pandemic, right? I met up with new and old friends in the flesh at this event. It has been so long, and I had no idea how potent the positive and fun energy would be. We kept shouting, "We haven't done this in a year!" It was, in a sense, a perfect night, and though I definitely indulged in way too many of those delicious potions, I cherished and harnessed the chocolate cake, the trinkets, the laughs, the intense sense of covenantship with all of those who were there. Thank you. I needed that more than any of you realized, and I know you did too. The next day, I spent the day in bed with my powerful and intuitive sister wife, Fava. We napped and laughed and ate our hangover away. Well, the hangover actually lasted through Monday, but being in bed, farting, eating, and hydrated with my beloved Fava was a moment that I turned into a pocket crystal for comfort when the rest of March took its toll on me. I have been doing some deep healing. Rather than placing a band-aid on the pain I've endured my entire life, I decided to confront one of the biggest wounds that I have. I made an unconventional and terrifying move, but it was necessary to free myself from the rusty chains that held me captive. No more will I allow narcissism, emotional abuse, the fear of regret, the fear of basically being burned at the stake to hold me captive at any point for the rest of my life. My oppressors often looked and talked down to me in the way that typical evangelicals and Protestants do. "Don't do that, Michelle. Don't say that, Michelle. You're going to regret it, Michelle. You're selfish, Michelle. You're going to have everyone thinking you're a Satanist, Michelle." But even when I was young, I have always picked and ate the apple of knowledge rather than conform. It's a gift that I have. When I did try to conform, I felt like a caged animal. That is what I focused on when I waved my wand and placed hard boundaries to protect my energy and let go of the fear of guilt my oppressors wanted to keep feeding off of. Now, they no longer have any power over me. My power is all mine, and I can share it with whom I desire. That doesn't mean I'll share it with just anyone anymore, though, a habit that I am breaking. I've come too far. Once I let go of fear and guilt, it left the wound wide open. It was a hole within me that I have since filled by keeping busy with manifesting some really good shit. When you practice witchcraft, you soon realize that you can manifest your dreams. When I began practicing, I started with small incantations, and within days they came true. Now I'm putting in the work to manifest a wish, a desire, and answering the call to come home. I'm a Pisces. I love my element. I love the rain. I love the ocean. I love the cold. I love dark and cloudy skies. I always have as a kid, as a maiden, as a mother. And now, as I enter my crone phase, I long to be graced with natural streams of water in my daily life. I want to walk through a big city and hear and see a river running through it so I can go to it for comfort and peace. I long to be lost in the woods. Okay, not really lost. I just watched Wrong Turn and I don't want to be that lost, but you get what I mean, right? It's just these past few years, the sunlight in California has drained me. It has distracted me. It has blinded me. The well is drying up for me here in Southern California. The drought increases, the heat suffocates me, and the call to move north has only become louder in my spiritual realm. North is where I know I will find the inspiration to write for you all and do what I want to do, what I've always wanted to do, be a writer, to complete my healing, to slow down a bit and begin the next phase of my life. Boils and ghouls, I have an announcement. I, Michelle Halloween, and my family will be moving to Oregon summer of 2021. I invite you all to read my latest blog, The Halloween Oregon Trail, for more insight about how we came to this decision, the recent trip that we took, and the heavy darkness that lies above and within Oregon, and more on why I want to dwell there. Don't trip, though. I would never even think to miss my favorite SoCal events, such as the Witch's Brew, Midsummer Scream, Monster Palooza, the Home Haunts, the theme parks, and just the entire fucking Halloween season. Okay? I would never miss that for anything in the world. I will be around, folks. I'll still be around. Part of being witch on the daily is being willing to open your mind and spirit to allow signs and messages from the universe, Gaia, the spirits from above and below, and across the entire world. Have you ever received a message from someone as you were thinking of them right at that moment? Have you ever experienced deja vu? Have you ever had a vivid dream that changed your entire day, weeks, years, or just your entire life? Did you grow up being told that this kind of stuff is evil and should be rebuked in the name of Jesus? During the season of Ostera comes Easter. This holiday's always been a drain of my energy. I've never liked it. The colors, the point, ugh. When I was a kid, I was sometimes forced to deal with attending church, even though it wasn't a regular thing. It was just to show off, apparently. My annoyance at this inconvenience was eased a bit when I heard the stories of how Jesus was having his followers drink blood and eat his flesh. It was like listening to a horror movie in a holy place. Then his grave was robbed, and the Christians believe he returned to the sky and died for all of our fuck ups. Even as a kid, I knew this was a horror story about a zombie. That's how I got through those ridiculous, boring ass Easter sermons. Jesus encouraged cannibalism. He was a zombie, and sadly, his followers have been infected by his flesh and blood consuming for centuries to come. We're still dealing with that. I mean, fuck. I'm sure many of us can relate to this. I grew up being told I need to fear and repel the occult, the truth. I was told to rebuke knowledge. Even in my adult life, I've been told my obsession with horror and Halloween will invite evil into my homes, into the lives of my children. Woo! And this was all by the same Christians that often use the following prayer of protection and guidance and just sending their kids to school. May you be covered by the blood of Jesus. And I'm the evil satanic witch? I mean, where do you even get Jesus' blood? This came from the mouths of the same people who were losing their shit over Little Nas' satanic shoe. The same folks who totally gave in to that satanic panic shit. I think we're in the third realm of that. The same Christians who are disgusted by homosexuality and openly said so. The same Christians who judge and make fun of others based on how they're dressed. The same Christians who consider the monthly moon cycle as something dirty and to be ashamed of. The same Christians who feel women should be honoring their men and upholding his daily successes. And again, I'm the evil one. Well, I guess so, because with every apple that I eat, I imagine it's filled with limitless knowledge and the secrets to honoring my own fucking power, my own strength, and my ability to learn. I will continue to indulge in original sin if it means I get to live my life the way I want to. If it means that it helps me heal and help me heal others, if it means I get to disperse my power and get to keep it for myself as I see fit, if it means I get to be horny and use sex magic to enhance my intentions, if it means I can learn and absorb truthful knowledge for the rest of my life, then so be it. I'll be an evil satanic witch. I mean, it's no wonder why God wanted to keep the apple tree to himself. It's no wonder why Lucifer was cast out from God's kingdom for simply illuminating. Lucifer means light, by the way. When he informed God he was being stingy with universal power. And then, like a boomer, God kicked his son out of the house and told everyone he is the root of all evil, just so he could keep consuming and feeding off of the prayers of the sheep below. Not to mention this story, which is what the Bible is a story written by a bunch of power-hungry men who made up this religion as a means to control others and wage war. The best kind of slave is the one who agrees to be a slave. I have a personal problem with Christianity, as it's the religion that has so much of society in shackles. But it doesn't mean I hate all Christians. I know some beautiful Christians who encourage healing, horror movies, and Halloween. I know Christian witches. I know Christians who use their spirituality and prayers to actually help others, help and heal, who do the work, who go on missions to uplift the spirits of other people without hitting them with Bibles all the time. But it's the ones who who have tried their hardest to keep me chained to their beliefs that I need to live my life in fear of eternal damnation. Those are ones that I mock and fight against. It's the ones who push their agenda and use it to judge and abuse everyone around them. They have been the most hurtful and truly evil people in my life. Not me. My friend Denise posted a quote recently that summed it up perfectly. They taught us to fear the witches, not the ones who burn them. She said it right. Let that sink in. Think about it. I've always had this gift of seeing right through the bullshit of, other people's alleged good intentions. I can always tell when it's fake. I've had this gift, and I have my spirituality and intuition to thank for that. My intuition, my gifts help me sense when I'm being spiritually attacked. And the more I resist those attempts and honor my path, my light, and my darkness, I feel better. And the more powerful I feel, so I can actually help other people. Halloween is every day when you're a witch. You get to hex the patriarchy. You can play with crystals, dress candles. You can make wishes with those candles. You can burn pieces of paper to set off magic. You can get in tune with the many voices of Gaia and invoke deities to help you along your path. You can head into nature to actually connect and ground yourself with the world. You can rest when you have your moon cycle. It's okay. You can harness the power of the moon and work with planetary influences. You can make teas and potions and make meals with all kinds of intentions and spells. You don't have to be a cannibal and eat the body and blood of a magician named Jesus who lived 2,000 years ago to be a good person. It's just the truth of it. You have the power within you. You can use your orgasms to top off a spell. You don't have to hold back or deny yourself from what you love or your basic human nature. Just don't go fucking doing bad shit to people. There is no eternal damnation, so you can live your life to its absolute fullest. Being a witch is another aspect of my Halloween lifestyle. Unmask from the routine and make it Halloween every day. Now, another Michelle Halloween news. So much happened in March. It's similar to October. It was over in the blink of an eye. But this March, I'm glad it's over. Fuck. Rawl of the Dead and I completed issue 3 of the Rawl of the Dead magazine, which included a special edition cover of the gorgeous Danny Devine. Have you seen her? Damn it, that girl, I want to do what she does. Fire and shit. I'll probably burn my hair off. Anyways, I'm very proud of these issues, and let me express my gratitude to Rawl, the models, JQ Artistry, the Band 13, and our sponsors, Altered State of Reverb, Strange Cult, and my special guest on this episode, the wonderful, intuitive, and powerful Matt Auyrn. If you don't have your copies yet, get them today at rawlofthedeadphotography.com. I also heard the Midsummer Scream swap market is sold out, but that makes my horror self happy. Congratulations, guys. I love you, Midsummer Scream. During the month of March, I was a guest on the Pillar of Thriller podcast. Woo! Talking to Justin and Roma was a blast, and I did so much talking. It was all about my horror influences and all my favorite spooky things. So I love telling these stories. So if you're interested, you know what? Just do it. Go on over to Pillar of Thriller's YouTube channel to see. Thanks to their recommendations, I watched and actually really enjoyed Wrong Turn, the new version. Fuck, that was a movie. I am also grateful to have been invited to join in on the Horror in Color for Horror Karaoke. This could actually turn into a weekly thing, and even though my voice is absolutely atrocious, I had so much fun with my friends on this Clubhouse event. I do have to mention being included with such Black excellence is a dream come true. It really is. Zero, Kasia, Kat, Jazz, Bobby, Ivotries, everyone who's involved with all of these projects and uplifting each other, thank you guys for your friendship and continued support. Now, for some time, I have been working on curing my body dysmorphia. It's funny how I used to hate my body when I was obsessively working out and yo-yo dieting. I mean, I wasn't attractive doing all that shit. Now, while I still do my best to watch what I eat and keep my body moving, it's now because I use it to help keep my energy clear and to feel good inside and clear-minded. I like feeling healthy, even if my BMI disagrees. Even funnier, I used my BMI as the pre-existing condition to get my first COVID vaccine. So, thank you, spooky vibes and chunky thighs. Look, I feel really sexy. Sexy as fuck in my chrome face. I feel like my beauty has actually evolved, and so has my sexuality. Now, some of you may want to cover your ears and eyes for this next part as it involves my naked body. I've been doing a bit of nude modeling and enjoying being an exhibitionist, if I'm going to be completely honest. If you're interested in supporting this endeavor and have always been curious to how spicy I can be, feel free to subscribe to my OnlyFans and or Frisk accounts. I'm under the name Halloween. Unfortunately, March wasn't all happiness and illumination. I experienced a tragic loss, but my pain and sense of despair is absolutely nothing compared to what my friend Andrea is going through right now. On March 25th, Andrea lost her best friend, her husband, father of her children, Isaac, in a tragic accident. Now, this is difficult for even me to work through because I'm usually solid when people die, but this is different. Andrea has been absolutely amazing in keeping in touch with everyone and talking through her feelings, as well as her daughters, as they work through this. If you have any questions and want to help, visit my link tree for the Isaac Lopez and family GoFundMe. Isaac was a horror and Halloween lover and will forever be. So rest in peace, homie. I'm going to miss you. I already do. Another tragic incident happened when a ghoul in our horror community, Jessica, was impacted by that insane firework explosion in Ontario. Creep It Real OC jumped into action to help Jessica, who lost her house and beloved Halloween collection. Could you imagine all the stuff that you've collected throughout your entire years being lost by somebody's jackass stupidity? I can't. Right away, the community jumped into action. I would personally like to thank Ryan at Strange Cult, Zach Andrews, the director of Houses October Built, and especially Creep It Real for informing us about what happened to Jessica. Thank you for the love and support and helping her keep rebuilding. Shoot me a DM or Instagram me or email me if you'd like to help. And now the time has come for Haunt-HorrorScope. David and I have a special little shout out that we would like to give, and we actually are dedicating this episode to Samhain's lot in Deadman's Cove. Here's why.
Welcome back, friends, to another installment of Haunt-HorrorScope. My name is David from the Avenue Obscura YouTube channel, and I am honored to once again be your grim guide down the road that will lead us to the 2021 haunt season. Our first update tonight is from Jay, who runs the Compton Horror House in Southern California.
Hey everyone, we are Compton Horror House.
Hey everybody, thanks for the intro to my little demon. My name is Jay. I'm from Compton Horror House. I'm the creator of it. We're based out of here in Compton, California. Basically, right now, we're in the planning stages. Everything's on paper. So, we're going through all our inventory for the past couple years, double checking all our costumes, seeing what we can use, what we can repurpose, and then going off of that. So, for the past 3 to 4 weeks, I've been creating different rooms based upon the characters that I have in my head and jotting them on paper. You'll see to the next slide that you see pictures or drawings of them and the costumes that I have available for everybody working the haunt this year. Yeah, so this year, it means a lot to us. It's going to be the biggest year ever for us since, past season we couldn't really do anything due to coronavirus. I didn't give up, so I ended up working at the Haunted Hayride for this season, which was awesome. But that just gave me more inspiration for this upcoming season. All the ideas that I've seen, I'm gonna use that or use somewhat of it in my own aspect. So yeah, now it's all about taking whatever I've written down or drew and make it come to life. All my props, everything that I put into my home haunt is, made by me. So a lot of time and effort goes into them. Nothing really is store-bought. If it is store-bought, I try to revamp it as much as I can to make it my own. I try not to buy too many store props, just because everybody has them. I want to be most original as possible. I can tell you though, this year the haunt is going to be really, really immersive. So all five senses will be hit. Sight, hearing, smell. You'll be thrown off balance. You're pretty much being taken into a whole new world of this year's theme. This year's theme will be all clowns. The name of the haunt this year will be Stitch's Funhouse. So you'll be taken, deep down into a cave, and you'll emerge into Stitch's house. You'll see it. You'll walk through it. You'll see what he's doing, if he's trapped people there, or cut up bodies, so on and so forth. A lot of stuff in my haunt is very, very gory. I love blood and guts. The more realistic, the better. I want you to feel like it's as real as possible. The reason I do that is because people here in our community, not everybody has a chance to go to, Not Scary Farm or Halloween Horror Nights. I try to give the kids a taste of that, I would say. Give back to the less unfortunate people that get a chance to come to our haunt. But excuse me. But yeah, all my kids, I have 4 girls, they're all part of the haunt. We all work really close together. Creating the costumes. They give me ideas of what they want to be, what kind of scares they want to do, so on and so forth. And that's basically it for now. Next month will be totally different. You'll be able to see all the props that I'm producing and how do they work. So for now, this is Jay from Compton Horror House. I'll check you guys out next month.
Friends, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next creepy creator. He's been behind some of Southern California's biggest haunt events, such as Not Scary Farm, Universal Halloween Horror Nights, Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, and many, many more. Coming to us from regions unknown, Ted Dougherty.
Greetings. My name is Ted Dougherty, and I've been asked by the super awesome Michelle Halloween to talk a little bit about the wacky world of haunting. No, I'm not talking about like actual real ghosts and the paranormal inside some sort of creepy castle or a haunted attic. I'm talking more about haunted houses that people pay money to walk through and get scared by live actors dressed as horrific monsters. You might have heard of like the theme parks hosting very large Halloween events. Things like Six Flags Fright Fest or Busch Gardens Hallowscream or Not Scary Farm or even Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. That's the kind of stuff that I work on. I am a writer, producer, and director for large-scale seasonal events and attractions. at these theme parks, and I spend most of my time working on Halloween and trying to conjure different ways to terrify the living daylights out of a lot of different people, or at least try to entertain them a little bit. Now, believe it or not, this has been a pretty cool impact on my life, just because I look at what I do, and I look at these specific attractions as performance art, and the creation and the writing of these experiences are indeed a form of art. So that's very satisfying and artistically fulfilling. But on the flip side of things, for the hundreds of thousands of guests that flock to these different events, well, they're entertained, they're engaged, and partaking in these various events and in these various forms of art. So not only are they fulfilled, I'm fulfilled, and so it's kind of a really, I guess, satisfying marriage between the creators and the guests. Now, at the heart of these types of attractions is something named a home haunter. A home haunter is somebody who decorates the outside of their house for Halloween and turns it into one of these kind of similar presentations that we do at the theme parks. A lot of neighborhoods around the United States have home haunters. You might have one down the street from you in your neighborhood. You yourself might be a home haunter. Taking your home and decorating for Halloween beyond belief. Going all in, turning the front lawn into a haunted house. Like something that you would really see at a theme park. Now, I know here, where I live here in Southern California, there's a very large community of home haunters with a ton of people who decorate their house. Some of them are yard displays that are extremely elaborate, and others actually create full-on walkthroughs of themed environments on their actual property. It's awesome. Now, believe it or not, these people are not getting paid to do this. They are presenting these experiences at their houses for the pure passion of it and offer something a little bit cool to their community. To me, along with things like trick-or-treating, and a whole lot of other things too. I mean, this kind of helps define the spirit of Halloween. Now, with so many of the big events severely altered or closed altogether in 2020, the home haunts here in Southern California, probably throughout the United States, kind of saved Halloween, at least in my opinion, because they could still decorate and they could still help keep that spirit going forward, which was huge. So where do these home haunts go from here? Well, I really noticed, at least in my area, a huge spike in the production quality and the level of these home haunts. And they just put just such a massive amount of work into their presentations. They stepped it up to a whole new level. I think they knew, even if it was on a subconscious level, that they were going to be big players this past Halloween season. So because of that, I feel that they kind of really leaped up to that next tier in their presentations, in their art. So as the theme parks and the large-scale events slowly start to creak back open and present the new level, the next level, and the next chapter of their attractions, I believe that the home haunter is going to pick up right where they left off. Bigger, better, more community, more passion. And guess what? We are the ones who benefit from all of that. Because however anybody decides to celebrate Halloween, if it's costumes, if it's candy, if it's home haunts, if it's parties, whatever, we know that we can count on freaks like me, and especially these home haunters, to push onward and really upward to bring that spirit of Halloween to anyone and everyone who is willing to take part in it. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you this Halloween. Bye.
We'd like to dedicate this episode of Haunt-HorrorScope to both Deadman's Cove and Samhain's Lot, who were featured on our last installment. They both lost their furry friends in the months of March. So rest in peace to Copper and Abby. You may be gone, but you are not forgotten. Thank you for tuning in tonight, friends. And remember to join us next time as we gaze back into the abyss for more Haunt-HorrorScope.
Now, while being a witch is a lot of fun, it does take work, and I've learned from some truly gifted witches, all of which who have enlightened me, encouraged me to share my gifts and honor my own healing, and also to ensure that I give it back. At the beginning of the pandemic, I ordered The Psychic Witch, as it was recommended by my friend Ian. This is a book that I pored over. Matt Auyrn's writings on how to use different meditations, rituals, and exercises that all strengthen your psychic powers. I had no idea how powerful we actually all are. So goddamn, this book has it all. And at times it is overwhelming, but Matt actually prefaces that readers should take their time with it. Being a witch means you should share your energy, knowledge, and magic, as it's a lot to keep within yourself. Matt is full of psychic energy, who has been intuitive his entire life, and the way he releases it to encourage other witches is badass and overall just beautiful. Woo, I get these shimmering shivers every time I read his post and refer back to The Psychic Witch for reference. And once again, I found myself in the virtual presence of a wonderful witch who I can't wait to meet one day, who has been connected his entire life, and who has now become an international and best-selling author. Woo! Here you guys go. I hope you enjoy my chat with the Psychic Witch, Matt Auyrn. First of all, thank you, Matt, for joining me today. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful to you and for you, for the Psychic Witch, and for giving me your time today. And first and foremost, before I really get into it, congratulations. This book blew up. I remember when it first hit, and then I remember seeing it a few months later, and whoa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And thank you for your kind words about the book. It has been really successful and I've been very blessed. But part of that also is I'm like, dude, my book is about manifestation. I have to show that I can manifest results. So that's
right. And you did.
Yeah.
Now, I find it really imperative when parents learn from their children's interest, I think it's important. I have 4 kids, and I love catering to every interest, even though they're ever changing. It seems like I will throw all kinds of money, and just as long as they are into whatever they're into. Matt, you began reading books on witchcraft beginning at the age of 8, I think you mentioned. Yeah. And you mentioned reading Silver Ravenwolf's books, and you gave her a dedication in The Psychic Witch. By the way, do you guys see that? Now, can you illuminate what drew you to her books at the age of 8 years old? And of course, how 8-year-old Matt felt reading those versus however old you are now, whatever adult Matt is.
100 years old. So it's kind of funny. What actually got me into the craft is the movie The Craft. I had kind of a light, love for the witch archetype in general. But I was raised around that age very strictly Christian in some of the most extreme forms of Christianity. So I was very sheltered from like what was outside of our little like Pentecostal evangelical bubble. But one night, I snuck up and I was watching TV and I saw The Craft, and it sounds really stupid, but it was like a religious experience where I was like, oh my God, like this, like I'm so into this, because although it's still fantasy and it's horror, it's still one of the most realistic portrayals of the craft in television. So, that got me scouring the library at my school, at my elementary school, for anything on witches. And that didn't turn up that many results, as you can imagine. Like I would get like Roald Dahl's witches and, you know, stuff like that. But then I found a really old, one of those Time Life books that are on like certain supernatural topics. And this one was on witchcraft. And at the very back, there was a thing on modern witchcraft. And so it had a lot of the things you would kind of expect, especially in the 90s. Like it had a thing about like Anton LaVey and various other modern forms of witchcraft and magic. And there was one picture of Maxine Sanders, co-founder of Alexandrian witchcraft, with like her little coven. And of course it's staged. All their photos and videos aren't real, which a lot of people don't know. Like they gave fake stuff to the public and kept their stuff secret. But in that book, I found the word Wicca. And I don't identify as Wiccan today. But that gave me a word to search on Netscape Navigator at the time. And I'd find all these like Angel Fire websites, you know, on witchcraft. And I would start going to the bookstore at the mall, and I kept trying to buy Silver Ravenwolf's books because the way that it was marketed was very appealing, especially to someone who was super into the movie The Craft as their gateway, because the cover is kind of marketed for Teen Witch to look like The Craft. And they kept denying it to me like over and over and over. And eventually they let me buy it one day. It was weird. They were acting like it was like porn or like, you know what I mean? Like I was too young to buy it, so they wouldn't let me buy it. But I love Silver Ravenwolf even today. And I love her work. And I think she gets a lot of really unfair criticism. And a lot of that criticism is very secondhand. Like I recently reread her whole To Blank a Blank Blank series, like To Write a Silver Broomstick, To Light a Sacred Flame. And they're still super, super solid. And a lot of the criticisms that I read online are things really taken out of context. I feel very fortunate. I was talking to a friend because people older than me, they didn't get a chance to grow up with Silver Ravenwolf and all the witchcraft books that were honestly influenced by her work. She, in my opinion, is one of the most important figures of modern witchcraft. You know, people grew up with Raymond Buckland's like Big Blue Book as like the book that they had. And I understand its importance, but as a book, it's not the best. It's super dry. It's like a manual. It doesn't really explain things thoroughly. Whereas Silver, her tone is very friendly. She wants to put the emphasis on, you know, you understanding the information as opposed to, you know, either hiding things or trying to make things more complex than they need to be.
No, I totally resonate with everything that you said. It resonates because I was one of those kids.
Yeah, no, totally.
Those kids, and it goes back to I'll get into gatekeeping later because your recent post, I don't know how. I'm sure I could answer why you always hit at the right spot at the right time. I don't know, it's some psychic connection. I just put that in there. But I'll get into gatekeeping later. But yeah, a lot of witches get a lot of shit over when they say, "Oh, it was The Craft." Especially, I'm going back to The Craft. You know, I was 16 when the movie came out, and I was already, you know, rebellious. I remember going, oh, I wanted to read everything about The Craft after the movie came out. And I remember going to Hot Topic because that's all I had, and I didn't have a car at the time to go to all the good Hollywood stores. And, you know, the good metaphysical stores, all I had was Hot Topic, and my parents would barely let me go in there. And I remember I came out with a cross one day, like a really cool looking crucifix. And my mom was like, you need to make sure your dad's okay with that. I'm like, he's Christian. I don't know. But it's just funny how how readily available the tools are, especially knowledge, and how everyone is so afraid of the obscure, even parents, you know, that they just block it off and go, sorry, it's like porn, or, you know, so afraid of it because they don't know anything about it. It's just whatever they were taught. So it sucks. But here we are.
Well, and that's one of the things people also don't understand about Silver Ravenwolf. Not only were her books super important for our community and educating the public, but she also, for many years, ran an organization that Leo Martello started, which was WADL, which is the Witches Anti-Defamation League. And that was all about providing legal support and advice to people who were being unfairly treated because of witchcraft. Like they were losing their children, their homes, their jobs, stuff like that, because we had this giant satanic panic, you know, where everyone was super afraid of the occult. And it's because of that sort of work that witchcraft has become more understood to the general public, that we're not like evil, child sacrificing, you know.
Right. We don't eat the babies.
Right. You know, we use their fat for our flying ointments.
Exactly. And we use our placentas to plant beautiful bushes. So yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I can go on all day about oppression, the modern day witch hunt, you know, which I hate saying because that fucker who we just got rid of used that, and I'm like, don't use our stuff for your stuff. Now, speaking of children, in a recent musing titled "Passing the Magic to Kids," you wrote about an experience you had with a kid named Kai, which I love that name. And it absolutely, again, I have 4 kids, and you know they think I'm lame. You know, they don't appreciate me, you know, dancing naked in front of the moon or anything. Just kidding. It's cold out. But Kai his story actually filled my heart with joy. I'm sitting here researching you, to make sure I didn't sound stupid talking to you, but that story hit hard. You know, I would love to direct viewers to read that article on your website, but really quick, would you mind giving us a brief explanation how it felt corresponding with him and how he came to just write you a simple letter and look at the relationship now?
Yeah, so his mother contacted me on Instagram, and she hadn't read the book. Like, she's reading it now. But her kid bought it, her 7-year-old kid. And she wrote me telling me how much he loved it, and that he wanted to write me a letter. And, you know, this struck a chord like of awe, you know, but it also reminded me of, you know, 8-year-old Matt writing letters to Silver Ravenwolf, because in every Llewellyn book, there's to write the author, you know, which I'm sure she had a billion, and I don't even know if she got them. But I was one of those kids that wrote to Silver Ravenwolf. So I was like, I definitely want to write this kid when he writes me. So he wrote me, and it was super sweet, super cute. And he talked about how he, because I talk about reading and working at Enchanted, which is Laurie Cabot's shop in Salem. But when my book was actually released, I had moved to the West Coast, you know. So he went into Enchanted with his book, hoping to meet me, and I wasn't there. And he told me how he's saving up money for a wand and a broom and all this stuff. And he drew me these beautiful pictures. I have them on my wall, so you can't see them. I have one that he recently sent me, which is my favorite, which is this little owl. So yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I wrote him back, and I gave him like advice and encouragement. And I also, you know, set it up. I talked to Penny, who's Laurie Cabot's daughter, you know, and I was like, hey, you know, you make custom wands. Will you make a wand for this kid, and I'll pay for it? And she's like, oh, you don't have to pay for it. I'll do it. And we just did a lot of things. So we got it to where once the pandemic's over, he can go and make his own broom with his mom that he was saving up for. And then I was talking to Chris, the owner of Enchanted, because we have a strong friendship because I had worked there for many years. And so like I went to go buy a gift card, and he matched it for the shop. So we sent that so he could also go in and buy all his little magical supplies. But it was super sweet. It touched like a very resonant part of my inner child, especially like as a gay dude who does not want any kids. Like I am not reproducing, right? You know, it did touch that kind of part that was like, aw, you know.
And then you're like, here, go back to your mom.
Right.
That's so cute. And it's funny that you bring that up too, because when I think I discovered you through Pam Grossman, to be honest with you. And I think, I couldn't tell you, but what got me was that one, I think I was reading Pam's book, and the same thing even with women who are at a certain point who were like, dude, I don't put childbearing on me, like, come on. So I think it's really important, like I said, before we started actually recording this, that it's very, very important to cater to those kids' needs and their interests, despite what you think it is. Maybe I think we could learn so much from kids, to be quite honest with you. Being a kid, we know that. And then, even kids that we could just go, oh, hey, let me entertain this fan because you saw a little Matt in there. You don't have to go have them over for sleepovers, because that's just, yeah. Again, I have 4 kids. I'm good. And I don't want grandchildren.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't want any of it. It's kind of like, and I know this will cause controversy. It's kind of like, I just don't see it being a safe time to have children. Like, I don't feel that it's okay to have kids. That's just my thinking. But mine are older, so I'm like, sorry guys, you're here.
Right.
It will help. But Kai's awesome, and I love that story because I picked up on it right away. That's like a full circle type of thing. Imagine if Raven, Silver read your letters, and now she sees you now and going, what? Like, hey, it feels good.
She's super sweet. So like, I've become friends with her since writing the book, right before it came out, and she's been super supportive. I even did an experiment like 2 years ago where I went back to like Teen Witch and cast every spell in it that like would apply to me. And they still work. It's still, and for me, that's the most important thing is, like, does the magic work? That's more important than like any sort of, trying to come across as an authority or, being super spooky, or which I love. That's right. Spooky. So, but.
Well, it's fun. But that's just it. It's fun. It's not, I could resonate with that because even just with the conversation I had over Halloween time, this Halloween enthusiast was like, but I don't like horror movies, but I love Halloween. I'm like, okay, you don't have to like both to be a Halloween enthusiast. It's okay, Now we already touched on that, but I do want to get a little more in depth. How did you feel when you were watching, the Psychic Witch start to blow up? When it became an international bestseller within a matter of a few months. Does that even happen to Stephen King anymore? Not that it matters, but how did it feel? Like, what was your first? I'm sure you felt an array of emotions. But let's go with when you first saw where it was heading.
Yeah. So at the time that we're recording this right now, in 2 weeks, it'll be a year old. And it's just starting to feel real that like I even wrote a book. So like a lot of it has been on, writing the enthusiasm of, like, oh, it's doing well. But my goal isn't as much, manifesting so that I have X amount of sales or that I have X amount of money. It's always been on trying to get this information out to people and trying to let it enhance their lives. And which is why it's so like open-ended in regards to like, what do you believe? Like, you don't have to believe in deity. You don't have to be a part of a tradition. It's very secular, because my whole point is that magic and psychic ability are a birthright. So if it's a birthright, anyone can do it. But the book has been super successful. I think it's almost on its 10th printing now. And they've increased the printing amount every single printing. So I feel very blessed. It's in a few languages now, 3: Russian, Polish, and I think it's just in Russian and Polish right now. And then the rights have been bought in 3 different languages that haven't produced it yet. But it's doing phenomenal, even by like non-occult book standards. So I feel very blessed. I've put a lot of work into promoting it, and I've put a lot of magic into it as well.
And let me just again say how receptive you are. You mentioned in one of the exercises, I believe it is, or not an exercise, I'm sorry, one of the I don't want to say what this is. Not illustrations. You say I'm here for you, and that to me is so important, especially when I just started, actually diving into the occult just a few years ago, and I will never ever claim to be an expert, but I know what works for me and what doesn't, and I'm always changing it up. But I remember being so intimidated by the witches that I admired, that I was learning from. You, for example, too, but you were so receptive from the beginning. I think I sent you a message and just, saying thank you. Your book is amazing. You're like, thank you. I'm like, what? Like, but
Yeah,
I
I'm not
kind of found,
intimidating at all. So
I love it. But you know what I mean? I don't have a problem so much now, but it's just lovely how you're like, I am here for you. Don't ever think that I'm not going to be. If you have questions, you'll answer them. And I love that you take the time to actually, interact with your readers. Now, in the Psychic Witch, you guide readers on how to reach their truest potential, unlocking the secret to become a powerful psychic witch. Now, while there's so many books out there to choose from, this one in particular was published at a time where I needed it the most. I mean, we were about to get into the pandemic, and I know a lot of viewers will agree. Now, again, allow me to, express my gratitude for you. I still get nervous. The book was a hit. You were all over the place, all over Instagram, all over the bestseller list. But let's do a little bit of shadow work. Tell us about the ebbs and flows of writing this masterclass on psychic ability. Like, it couldn't have been easy. And I'm sure you had writer's block at some point where you're like, what the hell am I fucking doing right now?
right. So the book was extremely easy and extremely hard to write at the same time. It was easy in the sense that this is stuff that I've been doing for years, as well as teaching for years, whether it's in private workshops or it was, students of a tradition, excuse me, or students of a tradition. But the thing is the way that I teach it is not linear. It's very much like, oh, you've learned this, now let's go back to that, and it's a back and forth. So trying to structure it in a way that was linear without having to go back too much, back and forth, that was the biggest struggle for me personally. And then the biggest challenge in writing it was also because people have a lot of weird misconceptions about Llewellyn, particularly, which is my publisher, particularly because the height of their popularity was in the 90s. And so people think that they're the same company then that they are now, and that the authors are sort of the same. They are the world's largest independent, or not largest, oldest independent occult publishing company. Like, they're like 100 years old. But my editors not only challenged me on stuff, they're like, we need you to find medical and scientific verification for this thing that you wrote. So,
I for some reason when I was reading through that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm like, damn, Matt, did you have to research that, or did you already have that right away? I already know the facts, but the scientific and mathematical facts.
Well, I knew these things, but I had to go find primary sources that weren't someone said this in a book, So I had to go read through all these dry ass, medical journals and scientific papers and stuff until I could be like, there it is, So there's a couple really weird citations in my book that seem really out of place for a book like this, but it also kind of grounds it in the fact that it's not just woo, that there is, scientific studies that back certain things about the brain and about, neuroplasticity and stuff like that.
Oh, that's really what a challenge. And what a challenge. But I picked up on something when I was reading that. I'm going, I wonder if math. So that's one of the questions I could cross off my list, because it was what I was going to ask about. So are you a doctor too?
No.
Just messing with you. No, I find it interesting how you manage your work. You teach, you write articles. You're not a morning person, as you told me, and with the many exercises that you teach in the Psychic Witch, I am curious as to which one or few that you personally utilize the most when it's time to put pen to paper, or when you feel overwhelmed or you're tired or it's a bad day. Like, in other words, what is your daily writing ritual like?
Writing ritual?
Yeah, writing or just being mad. Like, what is your day like? Being
Um,
that you're not a morning person.
no,
I
no.
I
I
can
am an
I
owl person. I through and through. So it varies. So a lot of the stuff in the book, particularly the tuning in stuff, is stuff that I do pretty much daily. But it really depends on what's going on in my life and where my occult studies are. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing that isn't in the book. But when it comes to the book, you know, there are foundations that I do at least daily, like the grounding, the centering, the shielding. You know, I shield so much, and you have to, not just being like a public witch, but just living in the United States right now with its political climate, although it's toning down a little bit, you know,
hopefully, yeah.
hopefully. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it also varies on like what I need. So like, I do a lot of, like in the book, I talk about the lower self and lower self invocation. And then later that ties into like my shape-shifting exercises. And I do that a lot. I shape-shift based on who I'm talking to, especially being a very gay, young male. Like I'm not always taken seriously by different people. And I don't mean just like a cult. I mean like out in the world. But in a cult too, you have no idea how many people, like when I would do readings in Salem, like I would have, you know, and it was usually women, like older women, they would sit down in front of me, look at me and either ask me like, so how long have you been doing this? Or like, aren't only women psychic? Stuff like that. So, you know, I started being like, okay, well, I'm just going to like change how I'm perceived. And that has worked beautifully for me. And I stopped getting asked all those questions. But it's kind of funny in retrospect, you know, like that some random person, you know, some random tourist, because Salem is very touristy in October, like sat down in front of me, like being like, oh, so like, are you really psychic?
God. Maybe one day, you know, in the near distant future, I like to put it. It just won't be that way. That was my only thing about entering the craft at first, was being taken seriously. Is anyone going to listen to me? Is anyone going to bother to teach me my tools? So it's crazy how I just had a funny conversation with someone about elder goths yesterday. And I'm like, but I'm elder goth. Don't hate me. I actually admire you younger ones, and I will still dance with you. So
people are hating on elder goths?
Yeah, I'm now labeled an elder goth, because those are goths that are between the ages of 35 and up, basically. So I learned the term a few years ago when I started going back to the dance clubs, and my friend who's, you know, 10 years older than me was like, I'm like, dude, can you stay up this late? I kind of insulted her. And she was like, yes, can you? And I'm like, shit, you're right. Yeah, I can stay up this late. We ended up having the best time of our lives, old girls in the club. And I love seeing the younger ones. And they're more, to me, in my experiences, younger goths are actually more perceivable. They're more approachable than they used to be. So for me, it's a win.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like, I think you're in a peer group just slightly above me, which would have been like the people that I wanted to be like. When I hit high school, like I totally turned goth. So, you know, I got into all the music, like, going like way back to like Bauhaus to like, you know, Tool and Nine Inch Nails, you know, because that was kind of current at the time. But I totally know what you mean. Like, there was totally an attitude that we would like kind of project of being like aloof and like, you know, the other thing was we would never call ourselves goth at all.
Right.
Like if you called yourself goth, you're a fucking poser, which is like the funniest thing in retrospect.
And that's why I use it all the time now, because it feels good to say. I'm like, I was oppressed from saying it. So that's why I'm like, oh my God. I just love it. I love this lifestyle. I have a fun question for you. Highlighting chapter 12 of the Psychic Witch, terrestrial energy, you write about the importance of connecting Gaia, in other words, Earth. I'd like to especially highlight exercise 69, connecting to the spirit of place. I'm mostly curious as to what this exercise revealed to you, Matt, about, I don't know if you communicate with the Earth the way I do, but I've used your exercise and I loved it. But you can feel the pain as a collective. The collective can feel the pain. But what has this practice revealed to you about the pandemic, civil unrest, and the overall pain we're inflicting on, our one true home?
Okay, so that is a very complex question, particularly because I think connecting to Gaia and then connecting to the spirit of place are not necessarily the same thing. Like they fall under the same umbrella of like earth energy and stuff like that. But I see one as like the soul of the earth and the other as like a location, the spirit of a specific location. So with the earth, there obviously is a lot of pain. And this isn't anything new. This is something that I have experienced my whole life connecting with the earth. Like we are just shit to our planet. But there's also a lot of positive energy there as well. Like the earth isn't purely a victim. The earth will outlast us.
Oh, yeah.
If anything, it'll destroy us and then, come back. And it's done that several times in history, where it's pretty much almost wiped out whole civilizations. So, I mean, it's hard to say, especially because I have not been outside of like my backyard since the pandemic. So I haven't, gone out into like wildlife just because I've been so focused on staying home and not, catching or spreading COVID.
Thank you.
But I do think that like connecting to the earth is very, very powerful. And I talk about how, the alpha brainwave state and how, it falls within a certain Hertz range, which is interesting because that is the same Hertz range that the earth's electromagnetic field is vibrating at. And a lot of scientists, compare that to the neurological activity of a brain and the way that it acts. So it's really fascinating that if the earth is, if we were to see that as the neurological, process of the earth, the fact that that Hertz cycle is the same as the brainwave state that is alpha. And so many like witches and psychics and mystics and shamans and different people in different traditions place such an emphasis on connecting to the earth. It's sort of like tapping into like a grander version of what we go through. It's like syncing up in a weird way.
Exactly. It's phenomenal to me. And after I read your book, I started picking up on vibrations that I was feeling. Sometimes they're intense. And sometimes even my husband, we're sitting on the couch because we do that a lot because we don't leave our house either. It's been a really long time. We're sitting there. I'm like, dude, like literal vibrations. And that's when I have to pick up a book or I have to pick up something, just write it down. We need to start making I'm looking at it. We need to start making a chart because I want to write about this. But it is interesting how when I did read the book and I was able to get an understanding of what this was, what I was feeling, it intensified ever since. So it's been a good year. So again, thank you, Matt, for opening
So when you
more.
say vibrations, do you mean like you feel vibrations through your body or you're feeling them psychically?
I think I feel both. And usually what happens when I look and I see if it's like actual earthquake, because we live in California. So I have a way to, is this an earthquake? Because there's sometimes where, the house or even my dog responds. And then usually sometimes they just stop. And sometimes I get this overwhelming sense of an idea or an illusion or just something that I wouldn't say an illusion, but I always get something. I can't describe it to you because you're just going to have to wait and read my stuff. But I always end up tapping into something and then I get a message later that, hey, this is what that was. It can be subtle or it could be absolutely powerful, where it'll knock me down. But I'm getting it at the same time. Usually I get it at the same time where it's physical and it's psychic. And it's like, wow. And that's me giving, then I go, damn it, I love magic. Like, I love it. You know, you can't tell me I'm too old to learn new things. And it's incredible. And I love when it happens, and I'm really glad it's not earthquakes.
Yeah. Yeah, my belief and experience through my personal experience is that kind of feeling of like vibration, where you physically feel like it's hard to explain, but it's like you're buzzing. I believe that's your astral body strengthening itself. And it's kind of like you're trying to kind of readjust to like a stronger version of your astral body. And that tends to happen when you do a lot of energy exercises and stuff like that. So it would make sense if you've been doing the exercises in my book that it increases. It's also commonly reported when people are doing astral projection exercises, when they're new to astral projection, before they actually are able to astral project, they'll have that sensation of that like whole body buzzing before they pop out of their body. And that's part of what for me makes me believe that it is the astral body just sort of strengthening and becoming a vehicle, which is not only just for psychic or not psychic, astral projection, but it's also, it's strengthening psychic receptivity and like magical prowess and stuff of that nature. So I usually see that as a really positive sign, and usually it's not long term. Usually it'll last for kind of short bursts through a year or 2 years before you're kind of adjusted to a level where your body
just used to it.
Yeah, like you're more synced to it. It's sort of like a lot of people get sort of a similar thing when they're super energy sensitive and they first start working with like moldavite, which is a really high vibrational stone. Like a lot of people talk about how it's too intense, they have to take it off, stuff like that. But then slowly it becomes less intense to them to where they almost can't feel it.
Right.
And it's once again just sort of like learning how to like sync and harmonize with a different vibration, for lack of a better word.
Woo, it's beautiful, and I'm getting goosebumps. Now, here's a fun one for you, Matt. One of the things that I noticed, because again, I'm just a super fan of yours, and we have some things in common. In particular, a musician who we both are head over heels over. We're both huge fans of Chelsea Wolfe, and I have to ask you, because sometimes, and I'm noticing too, she's gotten me through some shit, and her music is what I love meditating to. Nobody can change my mind. It's what works. She speaks to me on another level. So I am curious. I don't think you ever mentioned about which one of her albums or songs resonates with you the most, and what is it about Chelsea that you love so much?
So Abyss, the album Abyss is my absolute favorite. Like I love all of her work, but there's something about Abyss that is just so, I don't want to say abysmal, because that sounds like it's, well, it kind of is on one level. Like, it's not necessarily happy. But it really does capture that sort of feeling of like being in the void, sort of like, just kind of like vast emptiness. I adore Chelsea Wolfe, and she's one of those people that like I try not to bug too much online. And I fangirl out every time she likes something or she follows me somewhere. And I got her address and I sent her a copy of my book, and I hope that she has had the time to write it or to read it, because she is such a busy person. What I love about Chelsea, there's so much. Fangirl, because she doesn't also have one musical style. It's very eclectic. It ranges from like acoustic to like heavy guitars to like this kind of in between ambient dark abyss kind of sound. But I love it. Like there's something in it that for me, my inner gothy witch, like just kind of resonates with that, And of course you don't have to be goth to be a witch. but they're just two elements of like, well, you know, who I am. Like, I'm not as like hardcore goth as I used to be. You know, I'm not putting on eyeliner and, you know, all of that. But there, it's just, it's the lyrics are beautifully poetic. Like, it's like there's so much emotion, not only in the lyrics, but also like how she sings and also the music itself. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you seen her live before? How many times have you seen her live?
No, zero. And that was one of the things that I told her because, as I mentioned earlier, like I moved to the West Coast and she actually does not live that far away from me, which I found out when I shipped the book. Like she's like maybe 40 minutes away. So I'm just like waiting for this pandemic to be over because I know like when she does local shows, it's going to be local.
Right. So you're like, oh, I can go. She's incredible live. She came out. I saw it oddly, and it was perfect for me because it shows my personality. This was like one of the best concerts I've ever attended because it went in with my two. I have a lot of like interests, but these two were in perfect and sync. It was Chelsea Wolfe in Ministry. And yeah, it was awesome. And I brought one of my kids with me. We had the best time. He wasn't into Chelsea because he doesn't get it. But yeah, that was his first mosh pit. So that was fun later on. But she came out, and of course she was wearing these boots, and she was like 10 feet tall. And I really wish I could describe to you what it felt like. So when you get the chance, I can't wait to talk about what your experiences is seeing her live. She's incredible. I think her and Alexis Mincole were the two that just captivated me, and it was just like, wow, that's an experience. Like, think of it as like drinking your way through a concert and you're like, whoa, dude, this is so much fun, but I wasn't even drunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just, it was beautiful and it felt good. And it was just an experience that I wish I could describe better. I think I could put it on paper a little better, but I can't wait to see what your experience is like when you get there. I mean, we're going to get there eventually.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to experience it, and I look forward to it. I definitely want to see her live. I think the most like magical for me shows, because I've been to awesome shows like Perfect Circle and stuff like that where it's just like they nailed it, but the most magical for me was Rasputina, and I've seen Rasputina a couple times. Like those are just pure magical shows. Like Melora Krieger is just non-human, like in a good way.
Yes.
And one of her openers at one of them was a woman named Eliza Rickman, who I've become friends with online, but she's also freaking phenomenal. And she just released an amazing cover of Tori Amos, which is like one of those, like, when someone covers it, you're like, not sure. But she covered Pretty Good Year without piano. It's all like orchestra. And I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, please, I was going to say, please.
Yeah, Amanda Palmer retweeted it, and that's like high praise. So
absolutely. I love when that happens. Well, Matt, we come to the end of our little interview here. I can't thank you enough for giving me your time. I know you're a busy witch yourself. And to sit here and have a conversation with me is just, again, awesome because I admire you so much. I love your work. I can't wait for book 2. Any idea, any point where we could look forward to it? I know you'll let us know, but anything to give us a hint as to when it'll be out?
Right. So it probably won't be out until next year. It was originally slotted to be turned into my editors around February. And that just hasn't happened. You would think I would have a lot of time to write with the pandemic, but emotionally and energetically, aside from promoting my book, like just the politics and what was going on in the world, racial inequality, just trying to like keep our country and our sanity afloat, didn't put me in the right headspace to be writing about the things that I'm writing about. So now I'm kind of back in the book. The manuscript is due in March, I believe. So I have a little bit more time, but that slates it, if everything goes on schedule, to be released in 2021. or
Okay.
2022.
2022. Okay.
And my third book should be slightly around that time as well, because it's a totally different topic this time.
Oh.
I'm going in a totally different direction, and I've been kind of working on that on the back burner. So
That's exciting! Oh my God, you have a
yeah, I
lot
hope
going
so.
on. And you again, I know I said I would goodbye here for a second, but really quick, just saying just how important it is that by you just saying, oh, you would think that I have all this time as a writer with 2020 and the pandemic. I feel you. I should have had 2 books written by now. If
Right.
if outside looking in, right, they think writing is easy, and people think that it's, oh, we have all this time. This shit was hard last year. I had a hard time. It didn't look like it, but I had a terrible time writing because my head was not where it is. The last 2 months, though, oh, I can't stop. So
Right. Now that, like, it feels like we can, like, exhale finally,
yeah.
at least a little bit. I definitely feel like I'm a lot more in the zone to be able to create. And I think it's like that for any sort of creator, not just writers. Like, I'm sure like artists and musicians and stuff like that are kind of in a similar boat, because it's also not just about like just creating stuff. Like, there's a whole muse element to it, that you can't really command.
And it just doesn't come to you. And
Yeah.
if 2020 wasn't a muse, I have so many ideas. Again, thank you so much, Matt, for coming on. I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and post your website and
Okay.
your Patreon. I think that's important to mention too. Make sure that you all are checking out Matt's Patreon. It's just under Matt Auyrn, right? I believe.
Yeah.
I have it in my link here. Make sure you're paying attention to that and get your copy of The Psychic Witch and look forward to book 2 and 3. Matt, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.